Now, taxi operators in Johannesburg are continuing to load their vehicles to full capacity in defiance of the COVID-19 lockdown regulations. In terms of the regulations, taxis are mandated to load 70% of overall passenger capacity. Taxi organizations say with the reduced load capacity, they are unable to make ends meet, including repaying their installments on their vehicles. Nosipho Mncube joins us live from Bree Taxi Rank in Johannesburg for an update. Nosipho, thank you very much. Just tell us what you've seen in terms of taxi loads.
Good evening to you, Francis, as well as viewers. As you have seen throughout the day, I was here in the early hours of the morning reporting live, capturing the scenes of what is taking place around 5 a.m., 6 a.m. this morning. Some taxis being filled to their capacity, as I'm seeing in this part of Bree Taxi Rank. You may recall that earlier from where I was reporting, I did indicate that not all taxis are filling their vehicles to full capacity. One of them being Faraday Taxi Association, who are governed by the National Taxi Alliance. And they did indicate to me, I spoke to Mr. Dalton Dlamini, who is the Bree branch taxi manager, who was saying to me that they have not received any direction from the National Taxi Alliance as to whether or not they can fill their taxis to full capacity. And until then, they will only be filling their taxis with 10 passengers for each vehicle. So that Faraday Taxi Association was one of the only taxi associations I saw that only had 10 passengers in their taxis. The rest of the taxi rank, including MTN North Taxi Rank, did fill their taxis to full capacity. I also had an opportunity to speak to some of the passengers and the commuters on their feelings about what has taken place today and what we're seeing might take place throughout the rest of the week. Some of them sympathizing with, the taxi owners and the taxi operators, understanding where they're coming from with regard to where they're standing financially due to the COVID-19 regulations that did not allow for them to ferry as many people as they would, and at some point to not allow them to ferry people for certain amounts of hours. So dating back then until now, they've made quite a loss. So passengers do sympathize with operators, but also are quite concerned for their own health. As you're seeing now, 15 passengers with 4 at the back and 4 lining up until the front and 2 in the front, usually in the minibus vehicles that we are seeing. It's quite risky and quite dangerous for them, and they are aware of that, but they are left with no other choice because this is their only mode of transport. As I had said earlier, that some of them can only afford to use taxis, some of them can only reach their destinations with the use of taxis, so they do not have any other choice. We heard Minister Fikile Mbalula earlier speaking on the matter and Santaco's decision to fill their taxis to full capacity, saying that he is not trying to be or engage in a war with the taxi operators and taxi associations. There are bigger problems to fight right now, which is the pandemic. We also saw him engaging in a virtual meeting with Santaco. So we will be seeing what the ministry has to say on the matter, whether there'll be any changes, especially because he did indicate that sometime this week there will be some feedback from the National Command Council speaking to the issue of speaking to health practitioners who will be able to advise them on the way going forward and whether or not filling the taxis to full capacity is something that they would advise, Francis.
And let's just remember that Santaco has said that if any of these taxis are impounded, it will go on strike, despite the open defiance of the lockdown regulations as they stand right now. Did you see any sort of security personnel?
Throughout the day, Francis, interestingly, I did not see any security personnel. I did not see any law enforcement surrounding the area or within the area. There was no visibility at all. I can't even say to you I saw at least one vehicle. I didn't see anyone at all. When I spoke to some of the passengers on how their trips went today, because a lot of the people here at this taxi rank in particular, going to different parts of Soweto, were here in the early hours of the morning. So I spoke to them about their trip today. How did that go? Did they encounter any law enforcement on the way? And they told me no, they had a smooth journey, and that's just a few passengers I spoke to. So I'm not too sure what the situation is with law enforcement when they do intend on making their presence felt here at the ranks as well as on the roads, but we'll have to see throughout the week.
Yeah. And very quickly, Nosipho, you told us that you spoke to a lot of passengers, but what about the drivers themselves? Are they defiant or also, seemingly concerned about the health issues here?
Francis, the drivers that I did speak to, so I'll start off with the Faraday Taxi Association. The drivers of that association also were hoping that they would be able to fill their taxis to full capacity. Everyone is going through the same issues, everyone is going through the same challenges, having made such a loss throughout this time. The drivers that I did speak to who are ferrying more passengers today and going forward did say that this is a move that they've waited for quite some time. This is something that they've welcomed. They appreciate that Santaco has taken this step because they have made way too many losses, some of them on the verge of losing their vehicles. So for them, there was no other way, there was no other alternative for them. This was one of the only solutions and one of the grievances that they had addressed with the minister. And so, yeah, they don't have an issue. Health is a concern. They do try to take the precautions that they may take, sanitizing their vehicles, sanitizing the commuters entering their vehicles as well as themselves. But right now, I guess it's just trying to make up for lost time.
All right, thank you very much. Nosipho Mncube joining us from the Bree Taxi Rank in Johannesburg. So many of those taxis affiliated to Santaco going for that 100% capacity, but there are some doing things differently. The Faraday Taxi Association, for example.